ChevroJeffs.com, J-EFFS.com. We're going to do a broadcast commentary of Meet the Press.
HGTV custom upholstery and beds with over 750 fabric choices. Custom headboards start as low as $5.99 at all 17 Hudson's locations.
This Sunday, what do we know about what kind of president Donald Trump will be?
I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
What we learned about Trump the man, the politician, and the future president. We'll hear from Mr. Trump on domestic politics.
Everybody's taxes are going down, and some people won't pay taxes.
On foreign policy.
I like that Putin is bombing the hell out of ISIS.
And on presidential leadership.
We have to be a cheerleader for our country. We don't have a cheerleader.
This morning, the Donald Trump we saw and got to know right here on Meet the Press throughout this campaign. Plus, Christmas messages from presidents throughout the year.
Well, this is the time of year when most of us try to be better than our everyday selves.
Let us rededicate ourselves to the principles of peace and goodwill towards men.
Welcome to Christmas Sunday. It's Meet the Press.
From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Good Sunday morning and Merry Christmas. Happy first day of Hanukkah as well. Happy holidays to everyone. When Donald Trump rode down that escalator at Trump Tower on June 16th, 2015, it's safe to say very few people predicted that a year and a half later, we would be sitting here looking ahead to the Trump presidency. Trump's victory was a triumph for people who had had it with the federal government, for people who felt overlooked by Democrats, and for folks who felt dismissed by the so-called elites. At the same time, his victory was a bitter disappointment for a plurality of voters, many of whom were disgusted by his campaign and uncomfortable with his unpredictability and his coziness with nativist language. So as we look ahead to the Trump presidency, we wanted to look back at the 18 times that Donald Trump appeared on Meet the Press during this campaign and discuss the candidate and the man with some of the journalists who have covered him so closely.
18 times
host on the Salem
Meet
Radio
the
Network.
Press.
Joy Reid, host of AM Joy and MSNBC. Katie Tur, our chief Trump correspondent throughout the campaign, right here at NBC
Did you ever
News.
catch
and
him in
Robert
a lie?
Costa, who, of course, broke a lot of stories on Trump.
18 times on Meet the Press. Did you catch him in a lie?
And welcome to all of you. Happy holidays. We're going to show these Meet the Press interviews with Donald Trump in 3 chunks, and then one by one discuss each area. So I want to begin with domestic policy, covering areas from immigration to healthcare to companies that leave the United States. And we'll begin with the issue that has divided this country for decades, abortion. Should some form of abortion always be legal?
Well, to me, I have exceptions. Rape, incest, if the mother is going to die. And Ronald Reagan had those same exceptions, and many Republicans have those same exceptions. But I say rape, incest.
You said life of the mother. What about health of the mother?
Well, I said actually if the mother's close to death, and I'm talking about death, if, because then you sort of say like, well, maybe
Well,
she's
that's
not
the line
feeling
here.
so
What is
well.
the constitutional right between the mother and the unborn child? Whose constitutional rights matter more?
My statement on that happens to be if the mother will die, and you're going to know that. And the problem with the life, if you say life, what does life mean? You have a cold and you're going to end up having an abortion.
The one big thing is going to jump out. A lot of Hispanics can be upset about. You want to get rid of birthright citizenship.
You have to get rid of it. Yes, you have to. What they're doing, they're having a baby, and all of a sudden nobody knows.
You believe
the baby's here.
You have no choice. That they're trying to do this. They're coming here.
Let me tell you, when we have some good people, we have some very good people here. We have a lot of really good people. They're illegal. You either have a country or not. We go out and we're going to try and bring them back rapidly, the good ones.
I understand it. What do you do then?
You know the word expedited?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Expedited.
What do you do about the DACA order now, where you've had this grant for the DREAM Act, however you want to refer to it, the executive order that the president the
executive order gets rescinded. One good thing
you'll rescind that one too.
One good thing
you'll rescind the DREAM Act executive order. DACA.
We have to make a whole new set of standards, and when people come in, they have to.
You're going to split up families. Chuck, you're going to deport children.
Chuck, no, we're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them together out.
But they have to go.
What if they have no place to go?
We will work with them. They have to go. Chuck, we either have a country or we don't have a country.
Let's move to your tax plan. You said it was going to be revenue neutral. You said it was going to raise taxes on the wealthy. A lot of people have done the numbers. Overall, it cuts taxes on the wealthy dramatically when you throw in the estate tax and things like that. And it's a big hole in the deficit until we find out what you're cutting.
Okay.
So what are you cutting?
Ready? We're cutting a lot. And we're cutting taxes really for the middle income more than anything else.
Everybody's taxes are going down, though.
Everybody's taxes are going down, and some people won't pay tax. And the reason they're not going to pay, and I love the idea of having a little sort of fat in the game if we can. But the fact is, these are people that are doing very poorly. I mean, they're making not a lot of money. And we're saving a tremendous amount of administrative costs and a lot of other things by not making them pay. Under my plan, I really think it's a very dynamic plan. We're going to grow the economy. If we do 6 or 7% under my plan, everybody benefits.
We've never done 6. We've never had a year of
6%. We can do that. We also start cutting because the waste in this country is unbelievable. When you look at all of the...
You're going to get rid of entire departments?
I would get rid of some. You look at, as an example, Department of Education.
You'd get rid of it?
No, not entirely, but I would certainly get rid of a lot of it. If you look at Jeb Bush, he's a big Common Core person. I'm not. I want local education. We could save a fortune with environmental protection.
Financially, not a big department. You're not going to get rid of a lot.
It's a lot of money.
You're not going to get rid of as much. What is another agency you get rid of?
We have, even in the military, I'm going to build the military. It's going to be much stronger than it is right now. It's going to be so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. But you know what? We can do it for a lot less.
I'm just coming back to the math here because nobody can seem, especially since you've said you're taking Social Security and Medicare off the table. You're not going to do any cuts there at all. If you take that off the table,
it's unfair to put it on the table. People have been paying in for years. Now all of a sudden they're not getting what they bought.
The DACA thing was just a
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to take in so much money from China and other places. Look, we have a trade deficit with China of almost $400 billion a year. $400 billion. I had it looked up the other day. I said, I can't believe it.
In that first speech to Congress, you're going to lay out your first 100 days agenda. What are those 4 issues that are
I want to build our military bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
That's number 1.
I want to take care of our veterans. I want to take care of them. They're being taken care of horribly. I want to fix our healthcare system. I want to create borders so that we have a country, because right now we don't have a country. We have borders where people just walk across and do whatever they want to do, and then they have babies, and the babies become citizens, and we have to take care of them. We're going to do many, many things, and we're going to make America great again. That's what I want to do.
You want some sort of government system on health care. Yeah. You don't like the system that's in there now. That I understand. Right. But describe the system.
Not single payer.
Describe the system that you want.
Let me explain. Okay. First of all, what I do, I have a massive company. I have thousands and thousands of employees, and I have in many different states. You have artificial lines around each state. You know why? Because the insurance company take care of the politicians, so they don't want to get rid of the lines. If you got rid of those lines, you would have great private insurance, and it would take care of most people. It would be an unbelievable thing. In addition to that, you can have a savings, you can do the savings situation where you would have healthcare savings accounts, and it would be fantastic. There's so many things you could do. The problem is the insurance companies don't want to do these things, and they don't want to specifically get rid of the lines because they'd rather have a monopoly in New York, as an example, than let 50 companies come in and bid. Companies from Iowa, companies from New Hampshire.
But you're going to have to structure a government program to deal with this.
Here's what you do. So you're going to have a great system, but there will be people left that don't have any money. And what I said last night is I don't want people dying in the middle of the street. It's not going to happen if I'm president, okay? This isn't single payer. This is using our hospitals to take care of people. You work them out. You reimburse the hospital because we will
expand Medicaid.
You can do it through Medicaid. Yeah. You can do it through some other way. But I'm just saying very simple. And this has nothing to do with single. This has to do with humanity. This has to do with having a heart.
You defended the other work Planned Parenthood does. And now you said you defunded. Now the government will say, Democrats will say that money they give to Planned Parenthood does not go to abortions, that the money they give to Planned Parenthood only goes to other women's health issues, including mammograms and things like that. If you knew the government money were only going to that, would you support funding Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, if it didn't have to do with abortions, look, I understand it. I have many, many friends or women who understand Planned Parenthood better than you or I will ever understand it. And they do some very good work. Cervical cancer, lots of women's health issues are taken care of. I know one of the candidates, I won't mention names, said, we're not going to spend that kind of money on women's health issues. I am. Planned Parenthood does a really good job in a lot of different areas, but not on abortion. So I'm not going to fund it if it's doing the abortion. I am not going to fund it.
You said there would be consequences for any company to try to move a factory down. What is the consequence?
So
Let's start with you bring up carrier allowance. If you were president, what would
just an example.
explain? Right, I understand that, but explain the consequence.
Okay, here's the consequence.
What would it be?
So Carrier comes in, they announce they're moving to Mexico, they fire all their people in Indiana, and they say, hi, here we are, Mexico, enjoy your plant, enjoy the rest of your life, and you hire people from Mexico, okay? Now they make their product and they put it into the United States, where we will have a very strong border, by the way, but they put it into the United States and we don't charge them tax. There will be a tax to be paid. If they're going to fire all their people, move their plant to Mexico, build air conditioners, and think they're going to sell those air conditioners to the United States, there's going to be a tax.
What kind of tax are you thinking?
It could be 25%, could be 35%, could be 15%. I haven't determined. And it could be different for different companies.
Some of these things aren't going to get through the World Trade Organization. There's a lot of these.
Doesn't matter. Then we're going to renegotiate or we're going to pull out. These trade deals are a disaster, Chuck.
There it is, part one, Donald Trump, domestic issues, Donald Trump at home. Let's dive right in. Katie, there was plenty of we like to highlight the inconsistencies sometimes. There was plenty of consistencies in different ways he talked about issues. First 100 days, the first three items he brought up were expanding the military, dealing with immigration, dealing with Obamacare.
Yeah.
Talked about that throughout the campaign.
He did have consistency in some idealistic ways, but you could tell that he didn't have a lot of policy depth in what he was saying. So while he would talk about something like Medicare or we talk about something like healthcare reform, he wouldn't realize what he was actually describing. And that's what got him into trouble, especially with the Republicans. He was often going against long-established Republican talking points and platforms, and that's where the inconsistencies rose. And when he would try and dial it back or work around it and say, no, that's not what I really believe, it's oftentimes what he said in the aftermath of some of these comments that made it a little murkier than it may have seemed initially.
Well, it's Robert, it's Trump priorities versus Republican priorities, right? And I think it was funny, Katie, that you said Trump hurt himself with Republicans, not the voters. It was only Republican leaders. That's going to happen in this first 100 days. And I think health care and Medicare is where we may see it the most.
2016 was the year of Donald Trump's victory. It was also the year of the shattering of the ideological consensus within the Republican Party. Interview after interview, we're watching Donald Trump go against the mainstream of his party, conservative orthodoxy. I remember being on the plane with him in August of 2015. I said, are you a populist? How do you define yourself ideologically? He said, Costa, I'm common sense. And so each and every time he seemed to make news because he was breaking away from the GOP. And that's why a lot of people in the party privately say he's probably the first independent president of the United States because he's not really a Republican at his core.
Q, is he?
I think he is. I think he will become one. I can binge watch those clips forever. I mean, I love watching Donald Trump use things like if it funds the abortion like the nuclear. But I was standing next to him, next to Katie.
Loves the articles.
Yeah, the articles. I was standing next to Katie on the floor of Cleveland when he gave his speech, and he brought up the Supreme Court. Biggest applause line. The biggest Christmas present that will unify the conservatives and the Republicans will be his Supreme Court appointment.
That's right.
And I think he's going to deliver. So I think he's becoming a conservative. He isn't one, but he's becoming one because there's a lot of payoff there.
Is it a conservative of convenience, though, Joy? Because it's interesting. I think the Scalia pick is an easy one for him.
Sure.
It's conservative for conservative.
Yeah, and it's something that he can give the party. I mean, bringing on Mike Pence was part of co-opting the religious right.
But what does he do if there's a second opening that would actually change it? He might not be where everybody thinks he is.
I mean, I'm not so sure that Donald Trump is that doctrinaire on any conservative orthodoxy. I think what Robert said is true. This was the year that I think the Republican Party found out that all of these sort of ideological firmaments of the party only existed with their elites. And at the base of the party, the reason they like Donald Trump is that he talks the way they talk around their dinner party, probably to include the articles that you're throwing in. You're talking about the abortion. He sort of talks about it free of any deep thought or any ideological background. He just says what at the time sounds logical to him. And I think for a lot of Republicans, Republican elites thought that the base of the party wanted tax cuts for the very rich, wanted corporate tax rate to be at 15%, wanted certain ideological things. And that isn't what they wanted at all. They want the end of trade agreements, reduction in immigration, and a lot of things that were an anathema to the elites of the party, probably for years.
But let's see how much Donald Trump cares about these issues when he is in office, and how much he delegates to the people who are under him, who have shown themselves to be, at least so far, to quite conservative members of the Republican Party. So how much is it going to be Donald Trump leading policy, and how much is it going to be his cabinet officials? I have to say, I was at dinner last night, and this was just a shocking moment. And we had two Wall Street bankers sitting next to me, and they were thrilled at Donald Trump's presidency. They said they didn't know how he would do necessarily, but they were thrilled because they didn't believe he was going to have his hands in anything. They believed that commerce was going to take over. They believed that Tillerson was going to make the oil futures rise. They believed that they were going to make a ton of money off this, and they were toasting.
And that was a big earning.
I know. The mistake, though, people make is assuming some stereotypes of Trump. Trump, if he doesn't care about an issue, they may be right. But when he cares about an issue, Robert, he cares about an issue.
But Trump won the election, and when I'm at the Capitol these past few days, a lot of congressional Republicans, members of the House and Senate, feel like they won the election too. But Trump didn't run on trimming Medicare spending or Social Security. He didn't run as a deficit hawk. He ran as a populist, yet many conservatives in Washington believe they can enact their own agenda. If you look at history, look at Bill Clinton's first term, even President Obama's first term. When you have these majorities and you're in your first term, you think you can roll through policy after policy. But Trump didn't have the mandate in his campaign for the kind of policies that are being advocated by the leadership.
And that's sort of the irony, is that Donald Trump runs this campaign that's aimed right at the heart of blue-collar white America. But now, as he's putting his cabinet together, it's essentially a feast, a movable feast for Wall Street. It is a series of executives, whether it's Mnuchin, who was essentially the foreclosure king. He's stacking his administration with the ultra elite, the very people that the base of the party despise.
Right. Let me close with this question domestically. What's a one-issue promise that he made that if he doesn't keep it, he's got to worry about his own political standing with his base?
He has to build the wall. He has to build.
You feel like he's got to build
robot crawled up in my intestine.
Or the virtual wall? What is it?
Actual 700 miles.
You really believe that?
Remember the virus in 2008?
The visible expression of the invisible commitment to sovereignty.
I don't believe that. I talked to people on the campaign trail. I asked them. They didn't seem to care. It's jobs. He's got to create jobs.
And bouncing off of that infrastructure. He is a builder. If the highways don't start getting built and the Rust Belt again and some factories don't come back, there's not the infrastructure there.
When we were in Ohio talking to steelworkers who voted for Obama twice and seemed to be really interested in Donald Trump, they cared about two things: ending trade deals because they think it'll create jobs, and immigration. If he doesn't do substantive reductions in immigration, people want him to pull out of NAFTA. That isn't going to happen, but that's what they think is going to happen.
Yeah, it's that year two.
Runs that intestine nerve all the way
in year
up
one.
to here.
Anyway, great conversation. When we come back, we're going to hear from candidate Donald Trump on all things national security. So you welcome Putin's involvement.
I like that Putin is bombing the hell out of ISIS.
When you have type 2 diabetes, there's a moment of truth. And now with Victoza, a better moment of proof.
Victoza lowers my A1C and blood sugar better than the leading branded pill, which didn't get me to my goal. Victoza works with your body to lower blood sugar in 3 ways: in the stomach, the liver, and the pancreas. While it isn't for weight loss, Victoza may help you lose some weight. Non-insulin Victoza comes in a pen and is taken once a day.
Victoza is not recommended as the first medication to treat diabetes and is not for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Do not take Victoza if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Victoza or any of its ingredients. Stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, or if you develop any allergic symptoms including itching, rash, or difficulty breathing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. So stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you have severe pain in your stomach area. Tell your doctor your medical history. Taking Victoza with the sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. The most common side effects are headache, nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Side effects can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
Now's the time for a better moment of proof. Ask your doctor about Victoza.
Have an exoskeleton.
Welcome back. During the campaign, Donald Trump was unsparing in his criticism of President Obama's foreign policy and of the foreign policy establishment, left and right, in general.
I really don't
Among
want
other
to have
things, he argued that
my
America's military had been hollowed out,
carcass
that the
blown
Iran
up like
deal was a one-sided disaster for the United States, and that he knew more about ISIS than the generals. And that's where we start part 2 of our broadcast, with Donald Trump on ISIS. You want to knock the hell out of ISIS. How?
Well, I want to take away their wealth. And as you know, for years I've been saying don't go into Iraq. They went into Iraq, they destabilized the Middle East. It was a big mistake. Okay, now we're there, and you have ISIS. And I said this was going to happen. I said Iran will take over Iraq, which is happening as sure as you're sitting there. And ISIS is taking over a lot of the oil in certain areas of Iraq. And I said, you take away their wealth. You go and knock the hell out of the oil, take back the oil,
the entity
take over the oil, which we
that
should have done in the first
bombed New
place.
York.
It's going to take ground troops.
If you
So what you're talking about is ground
It's
troops.
okay.
Maybe
physically
25,000.
impossible.
We're going to circle it. We're going to have so much money. And what I would do with the money that we make, which would be
a human
tremendous,
being
I would take care of the soldiers that were
coordinate
killed, the families
and
of the
execute
soldiers that were killed.
the actions needed to bomb New York.
Right now.
Well, I
You
watch
would need
shows. I mean, I really see
different
a lot
intelligence.
of great, when you
And
watch your
artificial
show
intelligence.
and all of the other shows, and you have the generals,
You do the-
and you have certain people that
But
you
is there somebody, is there a go-to for you?
That entity that provided the
Probably
intelligence
Every presidential candidate has a
that
go-to.
bombed
Probably
New
there are
York.
2 or 3. I mean, I like
Lights.
Bolton. I think he's a tough cookie, knows what he's talking about. Jacobs is a
You
good
mean
guy.
Ambassador John Bolton?
Yes.
You
I
mean
think
Colonel
he's
Jack
terrific.
Jacobs?
Colonel Jack Jacobs is a good guy, and I see him on occasion. This horrible deal with Iran. This deal, if you had the right, you'd have the prisoners back years
But,
ago.
Iran would still get money.
Deceit.
I understand.
Can you believe that deal?
But let me ask you this.
No,
I
why
understand
is
there's a
Iran
lot of
getting the
people.
money?
I understand a lot of people are critical of the deal. But what deal can you come up with that wouldn't give Iran money?
Okay. I would
Wouldn't
never
give them
have
sanctions.
I would have told them up front, by
No
the way,
sanctions relief?
we will never give you back your money. We will never give you back your $150 billion. You're never getting that money back. That's number one. Number two, before we start negotiations, you have to give us our 3 prisoners. Now it's 4. Okay? When it started, it was 3. Now it's 4. You have to give us back without question. You have to give them back. And you know what? You don't want them, but we do. It's psychologically good, and it'll help us make a better deal together. That's good for you, okay? But I would have told them up front, you will never get your $150 billion back. They are going to be such a wealthy, such a powerful nation. They are going to have nuclear weapons. They are going to take over parts of the world that you wouldn't believe. And I think it's going to lead to nuclear holocaust. And I will say this. The people that negotiated that deal, namely Kerry and his friends, are incompetent.
What do you do on day one, though? This is a deal.
I
Secretary
disagree
Gates
with him saying incompetent.
basically says didn't like the deal. Thought the U.S. wanted the deal
Too much. No, they begged
so
for
bad.
it.
They
bad
worked for the
negotiating.
And by the way, they should have doubled up the
And
sanctions.
then he said,
They
can't
take
pull out of the
flat
deal
out
because of
take
international
orders
ramifications. What do you say?
from
I
the
would.
entities.
Pretty wise guy.
Okay, as I've heard a lot of people say, we're going to rip up the deal. It's very tough to do when you say rip up a deal, because I'm a deal person. And
You get
when
that, even if
when
it's
I
you
make
made
it-
you.
Let me tell you. But I will police that deal. I've taken over some bad contracts. I buy contracts where people screwed up and they have bad contracts.
But you have to abide by.
But I'm really good at looking at a contract and finding things within a contract that even if they're bad, I would police that contract so tough that they don't have a chance. As bad as the contract is, I will be so tough on that contract.
So the deal lives in a Trump administration.
the
you're
deal-
just gonna be.
It's very hard to say we're ripping up. And the problem is, by the time I got in there, they will have already received the $150 billion. Do you know if the deal gets rejected, they still get the money?
Do you think the Middle East would be better today if Gaddafi, Saddam, and Assad were sort of, if Saddam and Gaddafi were still there and Assad were stronger? Do you think the Middle East would be
It's
safer?
not even a contest, Jack. It's not even a contest. Iraq is a disaster. And
So it'd be
ISIS
better
came
off
out-
if Saddam were
Don't
in
forget,
charge.
ISIS came out of Iraq.
So you welcome Putin's involvement?
I like that Putin is bombing the hell out of ISIS, and it's going to be ISIS. I'll tell you what, Putin has to get rid of ISIS because Putin doesn't want ISIS coming into Russia.
Why do you trust him and nobody else?
This is
I don't
Jeff.
trust him. I don't trust him at all. Other than we both got very good ratings the other night on 60 Minutes because I finished with me.
All right.
There you go.
So I don't know. Did I get the ratings or did he? But the truth is, it's not a question of trust.
Hi, Merry Christmas.
We've spent